Let's do more trauma dumping. I need to. There. I like to point out that the character there has nothing to do with the Twisted Metal character. In fact, she's actually based on a character from Skylanders. So, continuing from earlier, um, you know how I mentioned that I stopped going to my dad's place, right? Well, after that point, when I tried to contact one of my cousins, uh, sometimes to play Gothic phone with her, she was like, she ignored me. And while we have interacted afterwards, this is like in non personal scenarios, like interacting during school, especially as we're both in. Yeah. Yeah, we went to the same school. Yeah, it sucks. Thankfully, I found other people to play Gothic phone with. Gadget Gang. We typically make it Inspector Gadget themed because, well, we're an Inspector Gadget fandom. Well, part of it anyway. Speaking of which, there have been a few uh dramatic events that had happened this year, and one of them was, of course, a pedophilic self shipper in- infiltrating into a Discord server I was talking about. And unfortunately, I was one of the victims. Not in terms of sexual harassment, but like just wanting me to write a fan fiction for him, which he didn't make the intention clear that he wanted me to write a fanfic of him being shipped with Penny, who, keep in mind, is a teenager under the age of 18 at oldest in canon, um, because he wanted to be shipped with her. It's like, you can just write it, like, don't get me involved with this sexual deviancy. Look, I am no saint in regards to sexual stuff, in regards to fandoms. I'd be a hypocrite if I'd call it out. What I will call out, however, is stuff containing things like pedophilia and rape. And no, I'm not toning my words, because why should I? I'm sorry. Anyway, he wanted me to rewrite this fan fiction. I'm sorry if I don't have any photographic evidence. I blocked him before I could do so. But just trust me, he, like, at first I allowed it, not because of, I didn't, like, yeah, maybe I should have stopped when he suggested self-shipping, but I was like, can we please don't do that? And then he tried to cover it up by being like, oh hey, why don't you ship her with an OC instead? And at first I was fine with it, as she was aged up, but in hindsight, maybe I should have been more skeptical of the fact that maybe, just maybe, he was probably using the OC as a self-insert. So yeah, needless to say, eventually I was like, I can't do this anymore, and it's like, okay, can you please help me find another person? And then he typed it out a second time. And after that, we haven't spoken to each other since. I'm not the only victim within the fandom of his. Many people in the Gadget Gang Discord had been victims of him, including the current owner of it. Does it suck? Yes, it does. Sorry. Look, I'm not saying this as an outsider to the controversy. I was an insider. I was involved with it. You cannot accuse me of being a neutral party if I wasn't a neutral party. Also, I'm more of a visual artist than a writer. I do write, but it's not a main priority. Like, I mainly draw. That's my preferred art form. Besides, I'm not someone who writes penny-focused fanfics. I'm a person who writes gadget focused fanfics, and I'm also someone who prefers to go by the name of Augustine for him as opposed to John. Like, the live action movies I've heard are not very good. And besides, John Brown sounds too generic. Oh shit. I haven't actually watched the live action films. I've watched most of the cartoons though. I haven't watched Gadget Boy and Heather, but I have watched the 1983 series Gadgetinis and the 2015 series, at least some of the episodes. I haven't watched every episode of each series. I prefer to watch it with other people though. It just makes it more comforting. I admit I tried to watch the 1983 series by myself and I ended up rage quitting by the time I was somewhere through all that glitters. Don't worry, I still enjoy making content relating to Inspector Gadget. I mean, it's even in my username. So yeah, I am not going to be hating the series entirely anytime soon. Also, as I always say, the only type of hate that is valid is the hate towards Inspector is towards Gadget's clown outfit. I do not tolerate hate against people of color, LGBT plus folk, especially as one myself, as I am a romantic. Shit. Disabled folks, especially towards neurodivergent folks, as I am neurodivergent myself, as I am autistic. And, the like, just any group. We do not accept hate towards them. We do, however, allow hate towards Gadget's clown outfit because it freaking sucks. Which the form a former member of the Discord chat who was once the main head behind it compared his 1983 clown outfit to being in Jesus robes with shaving cream on before they saw the full body of the outfit, which I've actually made an edit of, not on the actual clown outfit though, just on a picture of Jesus. I go to a Christian school. Not Christian, Catholic. Definitely won't be showing that at school. I'm not religious myself, though speaking of my school, one time when I was in year 7, which was 5 years ago, I felt like I was forced to do Lent because my religion teacher made me feel as if I had to do it, even though I'm not Christian. I'm not even of a religion anyway. Most of my family isn't religious. most. I'm pretty sure there are some religious folks, but for the most part, not really. That said, I did look at some religions during my time doing religion at school. I just haven't been doing religion anymore because I'm like, it's interesting, but I just haven't been doing it because I don't have to anymore. Last year it was mandatory for me as I was in year 11. But in year 12, it's not mandatory. Which thankfully I have not been made to feel like I have to engage in Lent afterwards, even though they have encouraged me to do so. But guess what? I'm not doing Lent. I am not Christian. Why should I do Lent if I'm not Christian? Besides, it's like you're doing respectable things simply because your religion says so. Like, I get that that sort of thing can fuel someone's altruism, but if you're only doing it for the sake of a but if you're only doing it because your religion says you do, that's not really altruism. I know it's probably controversial, but hey, we can't all have good takes. Get ready for some more trauma dumping. In 2018, during a Christmas event, I decided to retreat in my room for a little bit because neurodivergent 12-year-old. My birthday's in December. In case if you're like, how can you be 11 and then 12 in the same year if you're in year 12 this year, judging by how you said you were in year 11 last year. I like to point out that I started school late, and my birthday's in December. Really early December, like 1st of December early, but still December. Anyway, my paternal grandmother, the same one that had those dogs that caused my xenophobia, decided, you can't be in here by yourself. I'm going to drag you out. Needless to say, I got carpet burn afterwards. I apologize for any ads. I'm not, like, why? 12 12-year-olds are allowed to have time by themselves. They are not that young. Like, yes, they're not exactly teenagers yet. Yes, they are still minors, but they still deserve alone time. And unfortunately, if you're neurodivergent like I am, or simply, well, you get what I mean, like if you're simply autistic or neurodivergent or the like, you're allowed to have your alone time. I get that not every autistic person is an introvert like me, but I certainly am. Alright, let's do another design. 'Cause why the hell not? Oh, hey, Miss Corpse. People seem to like Miss Corpse. I do not encourage AI. Now, Miss Corpse. I actually did a drawing of her. I did this drawing of her during a holiday I went on in Queensland earlier this year. This is my typical drawing for her. So it's good to draw her again digitally. She's a zombie. Alright, for something that isn't traumatic, how about I share some Australian propaganda with you folks? Because you get Disney World, Universal Studios, and yet you do not find the idea of movie world to be suitable for your countries. We don't have the luxury of Disney World, we just have movie world. And I went there this year. And it was pretty cool. Food's expensive though. The hot dogs that we had for lunch that day were, at cheapest, about $20. $20 for a hot dog. Needless to say, it was expensive, but on the upside, at least it was a decently sized hot dog with some chips on the side. Thankfully, the hot dogs I have after that, which are from this petrol station, are only $3. And I managed to get a upgrade for just the same price as the regular hot dogs once, because of a promotion on International Hot Dog Day, which was on the same day I went to this Crash Team Racing tournament, which I unfortunately lost, but on the upside, at least I walked home that day instead of catching the bus. Meaning I got to go home relatively early. Since I decided if I can go to this frozen good place, then there's no excuse why I can't go to the petrol station I get hot dogs from and a slushie. Because it's relatively close by, just have to walk a little bit extra. And did it work out? Yep, it did, and I got a loaded hot dog that day for lunch. Minus onions, because I don't like onions. I'm sorry. They also have these big-ass donuts there. Also, I like to point out that whenever I bring up prices, I am talking about them in Australian dollars. I'm pretty sure it would seem less if you convert it to American dollars. It would still be expensive for you guys, though. Yeah, for what it is expensive. But hey, if you're gonna make something that should be cheap but isn't expensive, you'd at least make it a decent size. And thankfully it is. Though, you know the, rides are a bit fast when even, I found them too fast. This is entirely personal opinion. Though, one horror story I do have in regards to Movie World, which technically isn't a horror story because it's not like anybody got hurt, thankfully. By horror story, I mean it was unpleasant. Pretty much what happened is that my mother and I were waiting in the Superman ride, which was, which the waiting room was indoors, and it was out of the sun, but it was extremely hot and crowded. Do you wanna know how long we waited? 2 hours. We waited 2 hours for the ride, which lasted less than the amount of time we had to wait for it. We didn't even get on it together. We had to go on it separately because there was like this fast pass line. And when we got the opportunity after 2 hours, one of us went on to the fast pass line. Because it wasn't full. I got onto the fast pass line. And my mother came out later. Oh, oops. It wasn't fun. Like, 2 hours without a phone. I know that's not a good way of putting it, but it would have at least helped kill the time a little bit. And unfortunately, we weren't able to do that. Needless to say, after that ride, we were like, you know what? That's enough rides for the day. At the very least, we got this, magnet of, Scooby-Doo and Shaggy. It currently resides on our fridge. So yeah, it is pretty cool, but I guess the reason why it hasn't come over to countries like America is that you get studio tours. And it's like, Movie World's still cool though. I even got a photo of me with Catwoman. Sun's getting in my eyes. So yeah, needless to say, with my trip to Queensland, I got to be away from my cats for 2 weeks. On one hand, it meant I didn't have to feed them all the time and they weren't annoying me, but on the other hand, I missed them. Which is to be expected if you're as cat obsessed as I am. Which, to be honest, I thought I would have become a VivziePop fan, fan of the Helliverse, I should be more specific, as I became 18 years old, but I just haven't really gotten into it. I haven't watched any of the stuff properly. But it's like, maybe I dodged a bullet considering how VivziePop had been a little bit of a freak. With her fetishizing rape, which is great. We love it when people do that. Sarcasm. And pretty much her insistent, also majority of her character swearing and the criticisms behind that has just fueled my desire to make sure that if I'm going to have frequent swearing in something, I'm going to limit it to at least one character. For the most part, unless if something goes pretty badly. That's how you should do it. It's fine if it's for, one or so characters. It shows characterization. But when every character is swearing, that's when it becomes a problem, because every character's personality is just foul-mouthed. It's fine if you only want to do it for one character. That is fine. I do the same thing with, Victor. He's pretty foul-mouthed. But it's like, if Victor swore and Maxwell and Lucas also swore, yeah, I can see the issues with that. And of course, that's not even, as I've said earlier, that's not even going into the fact that VivziePop is a little bit problematic. I'm not going to go into it too much, since I've already done my fair share of trauma dumping. I have no personal experience with her, though. Also, in 2020, I got this comment on a DeviantArt post that was like, use eye bleeding colors. And I was like, why? Because I'd been told not to use overly saturated colors, and all I got was cringe culture is dead. Look, I do not condone cringe culture, but at the same time, let people improve upon their art. It is not cringe culture to improve your art. You need to find an audience eventually if you're planning on doing big things with your artwork. You need to find an audience. And of course, using overly saturated colors is not the way to do so, as, well, it might cause some eye strain. I apologize for the jingling in the background, that's just my cat. She has a bell on her collar. But again, I do not condone cringe culture. It is disgustingly ableist, and it makes fun of children. And I don't care what people say. Children do not deserve to be made fun of for things they can't control. Like, yeah, they're a little bit immature, but that's to be expected. And people say that children are idiots, when, yeah, they can be a bit dumb at times, but they're not stupid. They're just inexperienced. Not stupid, just inexperienced. And also, it's okay to enjoy childish things. Even if it's not considered socially acceptable. And by that I mean, like, actually harmless stuff, of course. Like, stuff that's not going to harm anyone, or or, you get what I mean. You're allowed to like childish stuff. Though I like to point out that even though I say these things, just because someone is neurodivergent does not mean that they are into that they are into childish things. And by childish, I of course mean anything that's aimed at kids or younger. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with liking things outside of your age group. Especially if it's below it. There is nothing wrong. But again, just because someone is neurodivergent does not mean they are into kids' things. If you're someone like me, you have a, you might have a bit of a fascination for, things like Silent Hill and, on a more comedic note, Sam and Max. Even though Sam and Max did get a kid-friendly cartoon in the late 90s. Funnily enough, 10 years after, their comic book debut happened. But again, you don't need to be into childish things if you're neurodivergent. Just like what you like. However, neurodivergent folk, I think, have a higher chance to like some more childish things in quotes. And that's fine. And this is why cringe culture is inherently ableist. even if it's not affecting physically disabled folk as much, it's still affecting those who are mentally disabled, like myself. One time I stated during this anime and manga club that I was a fan of some cartoons, and some kids, of course, thought that that meant that I liked Peppa Pig. Apart from when I was younger, I do not like, even though I liked the cartoon when I was younger, I do not like it now. It's like, you are aware that there are more cartoons, right? And I listed some of them, which included Inspector Gadget and Danger Mouse. Because heaven forbid someone is into cartoons that, yeah. Also, gotta love it when someone says they're into something and they're like, oh, hey, you're into really childish stuff, huh? Maybe as a joke, when the stuff that I'm into isn't as a joke. It's legitimate. Although my coat obsession is slightly ironic, not for any sexual reasons. I just have an obsession with it. I am not an ironic fan of Inspector Gadget. There we go. Well, I'll go end it now.